Welcome to the Consumer-Oriented Approach to Evaluation. This presentation is developed by Michelle Berger and Joelle Reynolds. Research seeks conclusions where evaluation leads to decisions. Decision-making is critical in the field of education where teachers are faced with an audience of administrators, parents, and students who have differing opinions about what a successful program looks like. Modern educational leaders engage in research and evaluation on a near daily basis. The primary focus of consumer-oriented evaluation is around valuing a product for the public. This approach is concerned with answering the question, how good is this product? It differs from other approaches in that the evaluator possesses expertise in evaluative skills, as opposed to expertise with the item undergoing evaluation. Scriven informs us that evaluation, like technology or psychology or philosophy, is a subject with a very long history and a much shorter consciousness. We have evaluated much longer than we have been meta-evaluative. Fitzpatrick tells us that the consumer-oriented approach to evaluation has existed for centuries. The consumer-oriented approach to evaluation was formalized by Michael Scriven in the late 1960s. Scriven proposed a set of criteria for evaluating educational products titled the Key Evaluation Checklist. Scriven uses this checklist to synthesize an overall judgment of value from large amounts of data. A report based on the Key Evaluation Checklist would include preliminary, foundational, sub-evaluation, as well as conclusion and implication sections. Scriven refers to the contents of this checklist as being necessitata, not desiderata. In other words, these criteria are necessary to consider in order to avoid invalidity of the evaluation. Consumer-oriented evaluation relies on transparent and quantitative methods, evaluated by a person with expertise in judging things, not with particular content. Scriven values validity over perspective, asserting that the expertise or connoisseurship model may generate a valuable perspective, but abandon much of the requirement of validity. Scriven remains a major force in consumer-oriented evaluation, with over 400 manuscripts in the field. He is so much a leader that in 2012, Roy and colleagues proposed the need for a Scriven number. This number would reference the degree of separation between an author and Michael Scriven, showing the ripple effect of his influence in this field. In order to understand the evolution of the consumer-oriented approach, we must first consider the expertise-oriented approach to evaluation. Eisner's expertise-oriented model asks the evaluator to approach assessment with the goal of revealing something to the consumer that an expert would know, but a consumer would not. The shift from expertise to consumer-oriented evaluations first became important in the mid to late 1960s as new educational products flooded the market with an influx of funds for product development. Prior to this time, the resources available to teachers had been predominantly textbooks, and consideration of more expansive materials had not been a choice in education. Both the expertise and the consumer-oriented approaches focus on meeting consumer needs and societal ideals more than achieving the developer's objectives. The audience for these approaches is not directly known to the evaluator. It can be argued that this removes bias from the evaluation, as the evaluator is not the hired personnel of the product manufacturer. With a globalized economy, consumer-oriented evaluations have become increasingly popular. The Maclean's Magazine ranking of colleges and universities is one example of a formalized consumer-oriented evaluation. Certainly, high school students who seek entry into post-secondary institutions utilize this tool for their decision-making process. The work of consumer-oriented evaluators has made consumers less vulnerable to sales tactics and ploys than they were in the past. The modern internet is filled with consumer reviews, the majority of which do not follow stringent criteria for their evaluation. The criteria to be used in consumer-oriented models are presumably valued by the consumer. If the criteria are meaningless to the targeted audience, the evaluation is of no value. The criteria or standards that are used may include things like competitors' product offerings, safety issues, regulatory requirements, and efficiency factors. Web 2.0 brings a new dimension to consumer-oriented evaluation in education. Resources such as Teachers Pay Teachers provide user reviews, however the criterion for evaluation are vague and open to interpretation. While the consumer is evaluating the products, the evaluation criteria is not as formalized as Scriven would teach us is necessary. Scriven made a major contribution to the consumer-oriented approach with his distinction between formative and summative evaluation. The consumer-oriented approach to evaluation is predominantly a summative evaluation approach. Summative evaluations concern themselves with decision-making regarding a final product. While the primary application of the consumer-oriented approach is summative, consumer feedback has recently been used for formative evaluation. Companies such as Apple and Amazon use consumer data from the early stages of product design through to the assessment of consumer appeal, buying behavior, and customer satisfaction. There is a myriad of educational products on the market now, with a constant influx of more, especially in the area of technology. It is important for the consumer, the teachers and administrators in charge of decision-making to evaluate products in a cautious, succinct manner prior to sinking the limited funds at their disposal into new products. Employing Scriven's checklist in the area of educational technology would be not only wise, but most likely necessary. Contemporary products and programs that are being considered by educators and may benefit from this type of evaluation would include one-to-one or BYOD programs, as well as purchasing decisions such as 3D printers, robotics kits, or web-based instructional programs. In summary, decision-making is a complicated process. Educators are increasingly faced with challenging choices to make, and ensuring that students are served is of the utmost importance. Scriven's approach to evaluation offers educational leaders a checklist to help facilitate quantifying what is, ultimately, a qualitative process.